What do you think the Titans should do with the first overall pick?
Well, ultimately, I think you already know what your quarterback situation looks like. So obviously, free agency starts before the draft. So are you going to go down the road of, hey, can we explore Kirk Cousins? Is Aaron Rodgers as an option? Is Sam Darnold going to be a guy that's going to leave Minnesota? Can we solve our quarterback conundrum that way? The worst thing you can do is what the Giants did. Just decide, hey, we're going to kick the can down the road. We're not going to rip the Band-Aid off, and then all of a sudden, midway through the season, go, yeah, Daniel Jones is who we thought he was, and now we're stuck, right? So you address it in free agency if you can, if that's what you think the fix is. If not, then you decide, okay, there's two guys that everybody considers first rounders here, Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward. Which guy best fits what we want to do, and who do we think has the opportunity to lead us into the future? And we saw great success this year, with Jaden Daniels, obviously in Washington, with Bo Nix in Denver. So we've seen some guys have some great, some great success as rookies. But the bottom line to me is you got to decide what you want to be, the way you want to address that quarterback position. And then once you establish that, then go to build the rest of your football team.
You mentioned Bo Nix. What do you think the Broncos should do in free agency and the draft?
Yeah, free agency is always interesting to me because I think you pay A+ money for B- players in free agency. If you're allowed, and I was a free agent that signed in Denver. Like, I understand that I had an injury history. I understand that I was damaged goods. And usually when you're allowed to hit free agency, the team that knows you best decides you're not worth the money to spend on you. And I'm not saying that you're not a good player, but I don't want to spend, like I said, A+ money on a B- player. And so you've got to make that decision from a free agency standpoint. I believe in second wave free agents, right? Guys that are up and coming players, guys that are really good players. Maybe a guy that has been good for a long time. They can serve a purpose, but he's on the downside of his career. We saw that with Zach Ertz and how great Zach Ertz was in Washington this year, especially converting fourth down. So there is that aspect of what you're trying to do, how you're trying to plug some holes when it comes to free agency. And then, the draft thing is interesting to me because you got to not only draft a guy, but you got to develop a guy and you got to put a guy in the right system to succeed, and I think one of the big things that a lot of teams get wrong is before you start attacking guys and putting guys in positions, to really execute, you got to mitigate potential disasters first. So you got to take some of the problems away from a young player and say, hey, man, we're not going to ask you to do X, Y, and Z, but we think you can be really good in A, B, and C. So we're going to live in A, B, and C, and we're going to mitigate that potential disaster of X, Y, and Z. And there's, that's coaching, that's development, that's getting the right guy that fits in what you want to do, which I think is a big thing. Oftentimes we draft a guy and we say, hey, man, this guy has never done this, but I think he's going to fit in our system. And I think you've got to really develop your system to that guy's strengths and really kind of morph your system in what that particular guy does well, especially at the quarterback position.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show live weekdays from 12 to 3 p.m. Eastern on Roku Sports Channel in the U.S. Search Rich Eisen Show on your Roku device for daily replays.